What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and if it's your first time, welcome for the first time. My name is Chris, and something I do here on the channel is at the end of every month, I talk about every book I've read, every TV show and movie I've watched, and every album I've listened to in the past month as a way to be more conscious about what content I'm letting into my brain. So if you've been following, you probably noticed that I didn't post an episode at the end of June. That's just because it's been a very busy time in my life. I just graduated college, moved across the country, so I couldn't get my thoughts too well put together last month. So that being said, this video will be covering everything that I've watched, read, and listened to in both June and July. So get ready for a really long yap session. And yeah, let's get into it. So I read 3 books these past 2 months, and the first of those being One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. And so the reason I initially picked up this book is because I feel like so many people have read it. I know that a lot of high schools teach it as like part of their English curriculums, and for some reason my school did not, but everyone I talked to seems to have read the book, seems to have really liked it, so I felt like I was missing out on a part of the collective consciousness by not having read this book. So yeah, I picked it up. And this story follows a very bombastic, loud, and individualistic guy named McMurphy. And he is placed into a mental institution, into an asylum in the 1960s. And he is very much himself. It is very clear that just being in this institution will not change him and his outlook and his very bombastic personality. And so he kind of causes a bunch of problems in the ward. And he's placed up against the main nurse in the ward. Her name is Nurse Ratched in the book. And there's this very tense rivalry that you feel between the two characters in this book. And yeah, so this takes place in the 60s, and what I really, really enjoyed about this book was the way that the narrative was told. So this isn't a third person, like it's not told in a third person point of view. It's actually told by one of the characters in the book, actually one of the patients in the ward. His name is Chief Bromden. And the way that Chief Bromden sees the world is in these series of mechanisms and machines. So the whole world is just a system, and everything that happens happens as a result of either a cog turning or gas being pushed out. It's very intricate, this intricate mechanical world. And the way that Ken Kesey is able to tell the narrative in that way, it's kind of unbelievable that it was actually told by a sane person, because it feels like I'm reading the book through the lens of an insane ward patient. And so I really, really liked the way that it was set up. Another thing I also really loved about the book was the way that the characters were portrayed. I think the character portrayal in this book was done so masterfully. As you can see, it's not too long of a book, and we spend time really with about 10 characters, but you feel like a deep understanding of all the characters, of their motivations, of the way they think, their perspectives, and it's very masterfully done in that you only spend so much time with these characters, but you feel like you really know them. Whether that's McMurphy himself or all the other patients in the ward that are there with him. And even so, Nurse Ratched, who is supposed to be the antagonist in the book. And then obviously I think a big reason why this is taught in schools is the underlying piece of it, in that they're trying to make an individual conform to a system. Now, this was written in the 60s, a time of complete political unrest. You have the civil rights movement happening during this time. You have the beginning of the counterculture movement. And you kind of feel those sentiments in the book. Obviously, McMurphy being thrown in this ward, he's not actually an insane person. He's sane, but he's a criminal and tried to escape the system. So he's placed in here, and you can feel him trying to break against the system. In many parts of the book, he's trying to form a revolution against Nurse Ratched. And you kind of feel those sentiments, and knowing the history behind the 1960s, you understand that this is not just a story of the individual, but it is a story of a culture, of a capitalistic regime in which being iconoclastic and acting against the norms is viewed as a negative thing, and you get a lot of pushback. Not being able to be yourself and act the way that you believe is true to you. So I think it's wonderfully woven into the story. It doesn't feel like it's pushing it on you, but you understand those underlying themes. I understand why they teach this in school. It's a great book. And I heard the movie is really good too, so maybe I'll watch that next month. Another thing I really enjoyed about the book is just the juxtaposition of McMurphy himself. He is, when you first meet him as this very loud, very dirty criminal in the beginning of the book, is wonderfully juxtaposed to how he is towards the end of the book. And now I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a moment in which everything shifts. And you kind of feel a loss, a sense of despair. I don't want to spoil the book, but you can feel that very obvious difference between his character in the beginning and the end. And I think that Ken Kesey does a really good job in showing that breakdown of character. And then towards the end, it ends in a way that you really don't expect from the book, but it makes sense. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil it too much. But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I can share in the collective conscious now. And if you haven't read it, recommend this one. If you have read it, I wonder what you thought of this. Were you forced to read it in high school? Probably. I don't know. Okay. So the next book that I read last month was Howl's Moving Castle. This is by Diana Wynne Jones, and the reason I picked this one up is because I watched the movie, the Studio Ghibli movie. Obviously, I really loved it. I even got a picture, a print of it back here. Shout out Lily Glantz. I'll link down her Instagram. But yeah, so I picked up this book. It follows, obviously, Sophie had it. I've talked about the movie in one of these other conscious consumption videos, but I picked it up because I enjoyed the movie so much, and I thought reading it would give me a little more insight into the characters, maybe see how they interpreted a different story into the movie, but I don't know. Reading this book, it's not exactly the same as the movie, but I'd say like 75 to 80% of the book is carried over into the film, and then there's an added like war element in the film that's not touched upon in the book, which I found surprising. But yeah, you also have this a narrative following Sophie's family more deeply. But I will say, I don't know, it took me a long time to read this book, not because it was hard, but I just don't think I am the target demographic for this book. This is clearly written for elementary or high school or elementary or like middle school level readers, and being a postgraduate, I just felt like I was reading below me. And not that you can't enjoy children's books, but I just, the fact that I knew everything that was going to happen in the book, and the fact that it was just like so simplistic, it just wasn't for me. I'm not saying it was a bad book, but I'm just saying maybe it wasn't the right book for me. It did take me a long while to finish it, but I definitely would take the movie over the book, which is which is a take that I don't often like reside with. Usually, I always love the books more than movies, but I guess this is a different case. But yeah, I don't know, just not for me. Yeah. Okay, the next book I read was A History of the Philippines, from Indios Bravos, or from Indios Bravos to Filipinos. If you don't know about me, I am half Filipino. My mom grew up in the Philippines, immigrated to the U.S. when she was 25. And I recently took a trip to the Philippines, video here. Yeah, I think in order to know who you are, it's very important to know what you come from. So I wanted to invest more into my own culture, and into my own history. So I picked up this book from Barnes & Noble's. It's pretty thick. I mean, obviously it's the history of an entire country over 400 years. But I really enjoyed it. I think author Luis Franca did a very good job of making it digestible and understandable. It would never felt like it was over my head. Like, I understood everything that he was laying down. It was really interesting. I mean, obviously, the Philippines is a nation, a colonial nation for almost its entire history. And so a lot of the book focuses on how Filipinos tried to find their own identity as a nation who kind of always was colonially ruled, and how that fight is still going on to this day. Like, what does it mean to be a Filipino? Because even the word itself, people coming from the islands didn't identify with that, the Filipino, like, as a name, right? It came from the Spanish, and then obviously America came in, occupied it, and only recently has the Philippines been its own independent nation. So reading this, it was a little, it's when you read the colonial history, it's sad. I talked about Hawaii's history, like when I visited there. It's you kind of draw some parallels to that. I talked about in this video here. Yeah, if you're interested in Filipino history at all, I don't know if you're Filipino or just a history nerd, this is a very digestible book and really lays it down. I understand more about the places that I visited, the places that I want to go, and some of the iconic figures in Filipino history, like Rizal and Aguinaldo. So yeah, good book. I've been trying to delve more into history and more nonfiction pieces of work, because I feel like I always stick to fictional pieces. So this is me trying to branch out while also being genuinely interested about what I'm reading, as it's my own history. So yeah, only 3 books, like I said. Been very busy these past months. So yeah, those were the books that I read in June and July. All right, so next we'll talk about the movies that I watched these past 2 months. Okay, so the first couple movies I'll talk about, I actually got the Blu-ray disc for, because if you didn't know, in the month of, I think, yeah, it was June, Barnes & Noble was doing a deal where their entire Criterion Collection was 50% off. And so if you don't know what the Criterion Collection is, they sell physical CDs, and they include behind the scenes, they include the production of the works, and like some added commentary. So I've always wanted to start a Blu-ray or like a DVD collection, and this was just like the perfect time, 50% off for all these amazing films. And they also like choose like very historic and like culturally significant films. So that was cool to me. So I picked up a couple from Barnes & Noble this month. The first one I'll talk about is Stagecoach. All right, so this okay. This is apparently like what put Westerns on the map in Hollywood. This was created in 1939, and it had John Wayne, one of the most iconic Western actors ever. And just watching it, it was a very succinct story. It was pretty straightforward. You have this this kind of eclectic group of people who are making their way across the West, and And you have like this drunkard who is also like a surgeon. You have John Wayne, who plays the criminal outcast. You have a lady who's like a shameful lady. They don't go into it, but I'm assuming she was like a sex worker or something like that. And then you have like this like, he wears a hat, he's like evil, I guess, I don't know, but it's this cast of characters who spend time in a stagecoach, like being taken over the plains going west. So the cast of characters is really fun. You get this weird group of people, and it's just a fun time watching them. The movie is all in black and white, and I think what was really well done in this film was the landscaping of it all. You really feel the vastness of the West and the essence of what a Western is in this movie. And I'm glad I picked it up. My dad's a big Western movie, or like he's big into Westerns and like country music and all that, so we watched it together. It was a fun watch. The music was great. The acting was great. The themes are definitely outdated. Obviously, you have that trope of like the American Indian, or like in the movie, it's the Indians are like the main antagonists in the film, and they're kind of drawn up as like these brash, like brute people. So obviously, some of those ideas are outdated, but it was made in 1939, where that was kind of part of the zeitgeist. So I don't know. It was a good movie though. Definitely recommend. I definitely can see how it put Westerns on the map, just from the great editing, the great storytelling, and of course the acting. All right. So another film I picked up was Paris, Texas. All right. So I don't know what made me want to pick this up. I've heard of the movie, but I don't know. It sounded cool, right? I guess the box art also really called out to me. I kind of felt that I was gonna get this more slow, empty vibe out of the movie. Yeah, so it follows our main character Travis, who we first find in the movie as a wanderer through like the Texas, New Mexico desert, and he's found by his brother, and it's revealed to us that he had left like society like about 4 years ago and has been missing, just been wandering, and he's pretty much mute for the entire first half of the movie. And you get this, you're kind of guessing for the whole entire first half of the movie of like, who is this guy, what's up with him, why is he not talking, where did he come from, like what is his story? And slowly it unravels that he ran away. He has a 7-year-old kid, so he ran away from his kid when he was 3 years old, and then you learn that he had deep trauma in a past relationship with his old wife, and you there's this underlying feeling of despair and hopelessness and emptiness and loneliness throughout this entire movie that kind of really resonates with you as you feel it. And I think a big part of that is just the way it was filmed in this vast landscape where everything like feels empty. And then we have these really gut-wrenching conversations towards the end of the movie where he meets up with his wife again in this town, and you kind of feel, I don't know, it's not right. It doesn't feel right because he abandoned his kid. He's kind of taking his kid away from the life he had for the past 4 years, and is trying to reclaim this family that he had left. I'm not doing the movie justice by talking about it, but I really like the feelings that this story emanates, and I'm glad I picked it up. Definitely worth some re-watching. I'm not doing a great job of putting the film into words right now, but I think it's because a lot of it was left out, right? I mean, there's a lot to take in when you're watching a movie like this, but I really enjoyed it. Next movie was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And oh my god, what a beautiful movie. Holy god. Okay, so obviously, we all are familiar with the story of Pinocchio. It's a classic. It's a Disney classic. We watch it. We hear the story as children. We're told as kids not to lie. It's like a lesson, right? But this is reimagined, completely reimagined. It takes place in a war-torn Italy in World War II, and the entire story is just recreated, and it's recreated visually as well, as a lot of it is, or all of it is stop motion, and the figures that they use in this movie are, it's insane to believe that this was all like made by hand animated, or not hand animated, but like stop motion animated, like with these figures in real life, because everything is just absolutely beautiful. You get like these wooden, like beautiful like silhouettes. The shots are beautifully put together. It is just a visually stunning masterpiece. And on top of that, the story is so well thought out. So many elements are added that are not in the original. Like you have this, I forget the name of it, but this you can see on the cover, this like angel, who is kind of the figure who breathes life into Pinocchio for the first time. And you spend a lot more time with Geppetto as a character too. I feel like, yeah, you spend a little bit of time with him like in the original stories, but now you really spend time with this flawed man, this flawed, broken man who lost his son in the war and is now just trying to create the memory, trying to reclaim, and kind of understanding that he'll never have his son back. So, in fact, at first he doesn't like Pinocchio because he's like, oh, you'll never be like my son, my beautiful boy that I once had. And it's just a beautiful movie. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend. I think it's on Netflix. I think it is like a Netflix original, but I have the physical disc, so even when streaming doesn't exist anymore, I'll have it. So that's cool. Yeah, those are the three movies that I got from the Criterion Collection. But yeah, I watched some other movies this month. The next, I'll talk about these two at the same time. So I watched two animated movies these past couple months that just came out. Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2. Okay, so why am I talking about these at the same time? I'm going to talk about how animated movies should be made and how they shouldn't be made. Okay, so I watched Despicable Me 4 because my sister wanted to watch it, so we watched it together, and I was sitting through it, and I was like, wow, this was made for an 8-year-old. Like, the amount of fart jokes, poop humor, just like straight up like childish like themes. I was sitting there, I was like, why am I watching this? I was not really laughing at anything, but a bunch of the kids in the theater were. I was like, okay, why am I even here? I think at this point, Despicable, like Despicable Me, the first movie, was such a good movie, because when you have an animated film that is able to appeal to adults and a wider audience, that's how they always should be made. Like the Pixar movies like WALL-E, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, they apply to everyone in life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kid watching it. That was not the case with Despicable Me 4. And they had so much to use too. I mean, one big part of the movie was Gru dealing with being a father. And you can go deeper into that, still making it humorous and still keeping it light and funny at its core, but you can dive deeper into the hardships of fatherhood, and raising a child and how the world changes after that. But they didn't do any of that. They just took the route where we'll stuff as many stupid jokes and minion plot lines as we can to appeal to a kid, and it was not a good movie. Like, I'm sorry, not a good movie. But on the other hand, you have Inside Out 2, and this is Pixar's sequel to the original Inside Out, and this is how you do an animation, like a kid's animation movie. And even though I'm 22, I'm sitting here watching the movie and I am sucked into it, I am enjoying it, and I am understanding and relating to this kid's movie. Why? It's because it deals with these deeper themes, right? So if you haven't seen Inside Out, it deals with like the emotions, like the emotions are personified and inside of someone's head. The main character, Riley, who was originally like, I think like a 11-year-old in the first movie, and now she's like turning 13 or 14. She's going to high school. That's basically who we're following in this movie. But we're introduced to these new feelings and emotions in the movie. They're anxiety, we have shame, and then we have boredom, are these new characters, right, that are introduced. And obviously, as we grow up, we are exposed to new feelings, new emotions, and the way that the movie is able to play with that idea lightheartedly, but also have these deeper emotional hits in there, is why I enjoyed this movie so much. And the way that we're following, we can relate because we've all been there. We've all dealt with these emotions of anxiety, especially around this time where we're in such monumental changes, like from going from middle school to high school. And I think the movie is really able to present these ideas eloquently, even though it is a child's movie, and I still found it to be very funny and very entertaining. So the main takeaway, if you're making a movie for a kid, don't make it like Despicable Me 4. Make it more like Inside Out 2. They're both sequels. They're both animated sequels with a kid like demographic as their audience. One does it right, one does not. So that's why I bring them up at the same time. But yeah, the next movie I'm going to talk about is The Hitman. All right, so if you don't know what this movie is, this follows... Oh, this is a Netflix movie, a Netflix original, dropped on streaming, and it follows... it's based on a true story of this man who is a teacher initially, and he is approached by the police to act as a secret detective or whatever, right? He like puts on these like fake like personas and acts as different people to get dangerous people arrested, right? So you'll see him like changing like even like he'll change outfits, he'll change his like face appearance, he'll even change like genders at some point to act as like kind of an accomplice to the police. It ends up devolving into a big like relationship drama that happens once he like falls in love with one of the women he meets on the job, but is also like trying to act as like her savior, but he's also in character the whole time, so he kind of has this dilemma where he's in character, but she doesn't know who the real like him is, because he's in character acting as a detective or whatever. And I was really surprised to see that this movie was so like well like received. I didn't think it was a great movie. I honestly, like, if you like could hear from what I was saying, it felt like a mess. It felt like it didn't know what it wanted to be. And I'm not one of those guys who like feels like everything has to be like really like dove into, right? You know, like you can enjoy things just to enjoy them, just to look at something cool. But this movie just felt like all over the place. And so I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. I've read that like people love the performances from the main actor and actresses. Like, I just think they're like, I don't know, mediocre performances. But they are really appealing to look at, so maybe that's why people really like this movie, just because the main leads were very attractive people. But I don't know. I wouldn't watch it again. Maybe it was a fun time. It was okay. It was a mid movie. I had not much more to say about it. What else did I watch? Oh, I watched in theaters now. We're moving over to the movies I watched in theaters. First one I watched was A Quiet Place, Day One. And now I'm a really big fan of A Quiet Place. Both that and the sequel that came out with John Krasinski. I think that they do a really good job of creating this new... They add a lot to the horror genre. it's a premise that you always like play with, like being like silent, right? And then like not breathing when an enemy comes near. And just from that, you feel an intense amount of anxiety and tension already built into the movie. So I really love the premise of the first two. And going into this third one, it presents us day one, the origin of this like post-apocalyptic world of these aliens coming down, where it forces the entire world to be quiet. And now Lupita Nyong'o is the main actress in the movie, and I feel like she was wasted in this movie. I don't know, she's such a great actress, and I feel like this movie was just, honestly, just made to get a bag. It didn't really add much to the universe. Like, it takes place in New York City, and if you've seen the first two Quiet Places, this is kind of exactly how you expected this like whole apocalypse to go down when it first happened. It doesn't add anything. It kind of already existed in my imagination of how this happened, and so I wasn't super invested. It is a fun movie. Like, I was kept on my feet. There were some cool, fun moments with like the main actress's cat that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't a great movie. I think the first two blow it out of the water. I don't think this was necessary. It doesn't add much to the universe. But I guess it was an enjoyable movie experience. But I will say, a little bit disappointing. The next movie I watched in theaters was Mad Max Furiosa, right? The saga, or whatever. Furiosa, you know what I'm talking about. The one with Anya Taylor-Joy. Jesus Christ. Can't talk. But, okay. So, my first introduction to the Mad Max series, or saga, was Mad Max Fury Road. Now, this came out, I don't know, it's 2015, maybe? Somewhere around there. But this was one of the films that honestly made me fall in love with cinema, with movies. Just the way that they were, like, it made me realize how much you can do with cinema. Yes, it was a pretty straightforward movie when I first saw Mad Max Fury Road, but the visuals and the creativity that you get in this well-built universe where you're captivated. You also get some pretty good acting performances, even though it's more an action, like, thriller oriented movie. And so I was really, really excited for Furiosa when I saw the announcement, and my expectations were honestly met. This was a great movie, but let me tell you, it was not Fury Road. It was different. At its core, this film was a revenge film, following Furiosa as a child and into adulthood on her quest to avenge her childhood and what was taken from her by these enemies in the movie, right? And I think the performance of the child actor was amazing. I think the performance of Anya as an adult was amazing, even though there weren't a lot of lines, but you see that she is a woman of action, right? Like, she is just working, she is just doing what she does as a part of revenge, and it's a very, in that sense, very story-driven narrative, which is different from Fury Road in that was more of like a visual spectacle to me. You still obviously have these visual elements where it's like, this universe is insane, like, what am I watching? But that, like, shock factor isn't there like it was in Fury Road. But that being said, this was a beautiful movie. It was, like, very entertaining to watch, kept me on the seat. It was a little slower in the beginning, but that's fine. Like, you could cut about like 10 minutes out of the movie, but that's just a nitpick. I think Anya Taylor-Joy's performance was amazing. I think Chris Hemsworth's performance, underrated. I feel like not a lot of people were talking about it, but as Dementus, this crazy lord, like, type figure, leader, you get the embodiness of insanity, the embodiment of insanity when you're watching Chris Hemsworth here, and I think he kills it as an actor here. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely gonna revisit it some more. Maybe watch the entire Mad Max trilogy again. Yeah, geez, I gotta go quicker. But one of the other movies I watched this month, or these past 2 months, were MaXXXine. Okay, so if you don't know what MaXXXine is, it's an A24 film that follows adult film actress who is pursuing a career in Hollywood, like to become an actual actress, and it follows her story, but it takes place in 1980s Hollywood. And when you're watching it, you are more understanding that this movie really is an homage to that period in time. It follows this serial killer who's on the loose, and the unsafety of living in 1980s Hollywood. There's a crazy twist at the end that I did not see coming at all. So that being said, like, this movie was very unpredictable, but there's just so much gore and violence and sex all smothered throughout this movie. So it is just like a spectacle to watch. It's one of those movies that I feel like you don't need to look too deep into it. Even though it's just opposite from a lot of the A24 films, I'm realizing now. But it was a good movie. It was a fun watch. Like, you have all that like fake blood, this homage to like 1980s cinema. It's a fun watch. It's a good movie. Not great, didn't blow me away, but yeah, if you're looking for a fun horror drama movie just to put on, this is a good choice. It was very well made. The edits were clean. Acting wasn't great, but you get decent performances out of everyone. It's a good movie. After that, so I watched this a couple days ago. This was Deadpool and Wolverine. And again, not one of those movies that you have to look super deep into. It was a good movie. I found myself laughing. I found it an enjoyable experience. I laughed out loud a couple times in the theater, but I think if you've watched a Deadpool movie before, that's to be expected. I think a big question for me before going into the movie was like, how are we going to get Wolverine in here without ruining like the legacy of Logan, right? And Hugh Jackman in those other X-Men films, and how beautiful of a movie Logan was. And like immediately, like in the movie, Deadpool addresses that straight on in the most Deadpool fashion ever. And I was like, okay, great. Like, that was my only concern. And it was just such a fun movie. I will say though, I don't like how Marvel always tries to stuff as many like cameos and like references as they can into these types of movies. Like, yeah, we get it. Disney, you own everything. It's okay. But I mean, that's my only nitpick. It is a fun movie. If you are a fan of the Deadpool series already, you'll probably enjoy this. It was just a spectacle. A lot of that like multiverse aspects that like every superhero movie is doing now. So that was kind of annoying, but it's a good movie. It was a good movie. I enjoyed myself. I laughed. It was a fun comedy action, and that's all you can really ask for in a movie like Deadpool. So yeah, good movie. And I guess the last thing I watched, it wasn't a movie or a TV show, but it was about a 2.5 hour long performance. It was Kendrick Lamar's Pop Out show. And so, if you know, if you're on the internet, you know what this thing was. This was basically Kendrick Lamar coming on stage. This is on June 19th. This is on Juneteenth. Coming out, bringing basically every figure in Los Angeles, in the SoCal area, to come on the stage and perform in a monumental moment, dissing the hell out of Drake, and performing Not Like Us 5 times on stage. But yeah, before that, it was all, before Kendrick even came on, it was displaying the culture, right? That's what it was. Okay, my camera's dying. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, this was just a huge cultural moment. You had people like Jeezy, smaller artists, but then you had bigger artists like Tyler the Creator, Steve Lacy was there, YG was there, you had Roddy Ricch, all coming out to perform for the culture, for the idea of West Coast rap, right? And this was beautiful. And then you have Kendrick actually come out. I'm surprised there was no Baby Keem here, by the way. But yeah, you have Kendrick come out. He does a full set. He does Euphoria as part of his set, and he also does Not Like Us 5 times at the end of his set. And he brings out Dr. Dre. And Dr. Dre, at one point towards the end, he's like he performs his set. He does California Love, and then he says, "Psst, I see dead people," and the crowd goes wild. This would have been an insane performance to be at live. And then Kendrick Lamar goes on and does Not Like Us 5 times. At the end of it all, he brings on everyone from that night onto stage, plus more. I think I saw DeMar DeRozan go on stage, and I saw Russell Westbrook over there crip walking to Not Like Us. So this was just the knife in the the dagger into Drake's chest, right? This was the entire West Coast singing "You're not like us, Drake. You're not part of the culture, Drake." And I know it's not my place to speak about it. Obviously, white guy from New York. I'm not part of the culture that is West Coast rap. But just witnessing this was like watching history go down. Oh my God. And I honestly feel as if there is going to be a hip-hop revolution after this. I feel like rap is back. After this beef between Kendrick and Drake this summer, I feel like we're in a great spot. Which brings me to the music segment of this video. Oh my God. 2024 has got to be the best year for music in my life. I don't even think that is hyperbole. We've gotten some classics already, and the revival of hip-hop beef, this whole Kendrick and Drake beef on the internet right now, going crazy, bringing hip-hop back. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the music that came out these past 2 months, because, oh my God, what a time. What a time. All right, we'll start off with, I think this is my album of the year. And if it's not your album of the year, I don't know, honestly, what you're thinking. It's BRAT by Charli XCX. It is BRAT. Oh my God. Okay, so before hearing the full album, I heard the 2 singles off of it, 360, Club Classics. Oh no, 3 singles. 360, Club Classics, and Von Dutch. And I was just beyond excited. I've been a big Charli fan for a while now. I actually saw her during her Crash era, one of the best performances I've ever seen from an artist. And so, to say the least, the hype was extremely high for BRAT. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about BRAT. Right now, it's still summer. I'm still in my BRAT party girl summer right now. And oh my God, this was an experience of an album. Now, it wasn't a very long album. I think about 35, 38 minutes, something like that. Not too long. But the way that the world was built around this. Now, I thought that we were going to get a straight up rave, hyperpop, pop, like classic. That's it. But was I wrong? Was I wrong? Oh my God, was I wrong? This takes us from the emotional highs to the lowest of the lows. Now we're talking about songs where Charli is confronting, how do I say that? I don't want to get demonetized, but like, you know, offing herself. She's lamenting in these dark ideas. She's contemplating the idea of what it means to be a woman. She's talking directly to the media. She's talking directly to her fans and her audience. She's being extremely candid. She's being vulnerable, but she is also being a bad bitch. Like, oh my God. She is bringing us the highs on songs like 360, on Club Classics, on Talk Talk, on 365. We're even getting... Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about the deluxe too, because Spring Breakers, Guess, and Hello Goodbye all added to this album somehow. This was a perfect album. So this album really is a roller coaster, right? At the beginning of the album, we get these high energy, high hitting classics, right? Or these high hitting rave style songs. We start off with 360 and Club Classics, and we're on the up. We're hitting a high, baby. We're talking about she's being so self-reverent. She's being iconic. She is being the party girl that she is, and this confidence, exuding confidence on these tracks. And then we hit Sympathy is a Knife. We're heading down. These are more emotional, deeper subjects. Then we're hitting, I might say, Something Stupid. And this is some of the most vulnerable music that we've heard from Charli ever on this rave album. What? But it all fits. Like, you're feeling this emotion. You feel what she's talking about in relationships, in life, and then we're kind of on the up and up again with Talk Talk. But if you're listening to the lyrics, you're realizing that this is about a lost relationship, of miscommunication, of reflection, right? But you have it laid over this cool rave beat that makes you want to dance at the same time. And then, of course, you have Von Dutch, which is another high. And then you get Everything is Romantic, Rewind, So I, and Girl So Confusing. All on the down. Again, these ideas of reflection, these ideas of what does it mean to be a woman, this idea of struggling with being in the spotlight. We're getting pure vulnerability from Charli on these tracks. The lyrics hit hard, the beats hit even harder, the production on this is insane. A.G. Cook, always cooking. What production we got. And we also get like production on from the Dare on songs like Guess. But again, we get teased with this like kind of jab at Lorde on Girl So Confusing, and there's this one line where she's like, we might make a song one day, it would break the internet, and then lo and behold, a couple days later, she drops the Girl So Confusing version with Lorde, and it does break the internet, because what is this Brat Girl Summer? It keeps on giving. I'm recording this August 2nd. Yesterday, she dropped a Guess version with Billie Eilish, so now Billie Eilish is part of the Brat era. Like, this is breaking everything. This was a perfect album. I cannot give as much praise like as it deserves, because God, I cannot put into words how beautiful and how amazing this album was. It makes me want to dance. It makes me want to cry. I already bought my tickets to go to the Sweat Tour. I cannot wait to see her. I've been living my Brat Girl Summer, and I want to talk about this. Everyone's been saying a Brat Girl Summer is just partying, whatever, doing lines in the club, dancing, but that's not all a Brat Girl Summer is. If you listen to the album, you realize that being a brat is being authentic. It is being yourself. It is being vulnerable and true to your emotions. And yes, that may be being a party girl, but that is also being an emotional person in tune with who you are and your authentic emotions. So yeah, if you're not living your Brat Girl Summer right now, you're doing 2024 wrong. This is my album of the year. Yeah. Oh my God, Charli, I'm so glad that you're getting the mainstream attention that you finally deserve. And I'm glad that Brat is taking over the world right now. Yeah, God, that was a rant, but it deserves it. It deserves it. But yeah, speaking of Billie Eilish, she also dropped an iconic album last month as well with Hit Me Hard and Soft. Let me pull up the track list. Now, this is obviously following one of her greatest albums. And it's hard when you have such a good two-run track to follow it up and still be different, right? So immediately off the bat, I noticed that we had a more subdued sound in the beginning of this album, with tracks like Skinny, Lunch, and then eventually you have Chihiro, which is one of my favorites on the album. You kind of get this more bedroom pop type sound, kind of Clairo-esque, right? Billie Eilish's sound, obviously, her voice is one of a kind, unique. That's something to be expected. And the way that Phineas lays these beats for her, she just floats on the production of these tracks. But what I found interesting is more towards the back half of the album, you kind of get this, these more funky, upbeat, kind of rave type style tracks like L'amour de... How do you say this? L'amour de ma vie? La vie. And you kind of get this more upbeat sound. So you kind of feel this more honest sound from Billie, which I was really digging. Birds of a Feather, obviously one of the hits of the summer, as it deserves. It's just her voice flowing over this smooth production. This is a great work from her. You got ballads like The Greatest, I think it's called. Yeah, you got ballads like The Greatest. And then it's just a good album. I don't know much more to say. Obviously, it's already doing really well, so people are loving it. I will say the song "The Diner," I don't know why, but it reminds me of Luigi's Mansion. I don't know why my brain associates that beat. I know it's supposed to be based off like a diner and like a stalker story, but I cannot break the association to Luigi's Mansion for some reason. If anyone understands, like, please let me know. I'm not crazy, but I guess, yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, speaking of subdued sounds, the next album I listened to these past 2 months was the new album from the Marias, which is Submarine. Similar album art, like, again, someone drowning in water. But yeah, this subdued sound, I really love this album. Yeah, you kind of get more of this dreamy sound. This is obviously a breakup album, and you kind of get this more disconnected, lonely feel throughout the album, especially on tracks like Echo and Run Your Mouth. And it's one of those songs that or one of those albums that you just play front to back on a drive alone at night. God, are we here? But yeah, I definitely, I can't say much. I listened to it a couple times, not too much, but from every time I've listened to it, I've loved the sound. The sonic landscape of the project is very cohesive. Again, that, like, you can tell by the album art, she's drowning. Like, it's kind of like a floaty, spacey, underwater feel to the album. And this is my first time spending time with a project from the Marias, and God, it was a good one. I definitely suggest anyone to give it a full listen. Okay, another album I listened to these past couple months was another more tame album. This is Born in the Wild by Tems, and this was her first studio album, and what a strong start from the lady. Okay, this is her first studio album, and already I heard the single Love Me Jeje before the album ever came out, and you get like kind of this mix of Afro beats on the tracks that is adding a new dimension to R&B and makes Tems one of the most exciting artists on the scene right now. It feels like Tems was made to be a star. I mean, obviously the vocals, but then you have her dealing with these deeper feelings on these tracks, like the toughness with a quick come up, quick fame and stardom, and you really feel it through her motion, through her lyrics and her emotion. She adds these elements of pop and dance hall and Afro beats all into her music, and the songwriting itself is really good. Some standouts on the album for me were Free Fall, the feature with J. Cole, obviously the single Love Me Jeje. I really like Wickedest. Get It Right, and then another single, obviously, Me and You. This was honestly also in the running for like my top 3 album of the year, even though I'm not a huge R&B fan, but I feel like she adds so much to the genre. And this is just her first project, and it is already this amazing mix of genres, amazing mix of emotions and feelings. I'm really excited to see her trajectory as an artist, because I feel like she's already set the expectation pretty high. Yeah. Okay. That being said, another artist that I'm listening to for the first time, I first heard of him. Oh, look at that. I first heard of him listening to the Beyonce album on Cowboy Carter. His name is Shaboozey. And now this is a country artist. And I'm not anti-country, like I feel like a lot of people are for some reason, but it's just not my go-to genre, so I'm not super familiar with it. But this album, Shaboozey's Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going. It does it. It does it for me. Honestly, it's a mix of hip-hop and country, but not in the way that Lil Nas X did it. You know, it feels more genuine, more of that country aesthetic, more rather than like the hip-hop aesthetic. If I'm making sense, it leans more towards country, just with elements of hip-hop drizzled in there. But yeah, this guy is a country boy. He sings of these like timeless themes about like moving west and abandoning his own because there's nothing east of the Mississippi that's right for him. You know, he's a traveler, he's a cowboy, he's a lone star. These ideas that are prevalent in like Western movies and like early country music that really resonate. I'm referring to the song like East of Massanutten. And a lyric he has in that song is, and out there I know is a land full of dreams with milk, gold, and honey just waiting for me. And so I packed me a little duffel, skip the goodbyes and leave. So east of Massanutten, there's nothing for me. Okay, that's been stuck in my head for so long. I'm sorry I just sang that to you guys, but that's a great song. But I feel like is the embodiment of country, is the embodiment of what Shaboozey is. Obviously, we have a bar song, Tipsy, on this album, which was like summer smash, summer hit, but obviously one of the most catchy songs you'll hear this summer. And honestly, been on rotation, know every lyric now because I hear it all the time. But he's doing stuff for the country genre. You often don't see a black man in the space like this, and I love that Beyonce put me on to this artist. This project was really enjoyable front to back, had me vibing, singing about horses and Hellcats, riding his horse on the open land. This is a country album, and I found myself really enjoying it, which was surprising, but hey man, I feel exactly how this guy probably feels in this poster right here. On a horse, looking into the great unknown. Shaboozey, great album. If you're not a country fan, maybe you should give this a try. I mean, you might be converted because I'm slowly heading towards that direction after Cowboy Carter. Yeah, another album. Sorry, I told you this was going to be long. Another album that I listened to this month was Timeless, Kaytranada. Now, this is a EDM house album. Not usually what I listen to, again, but branching out. Kaytranada has always been iconic for his sound, and also for his ability to get such iconic people on his tracks, and kind of really find the groove to their sound, right? So on this, you just have bangers. Honestly, like, it kind of, I'll say this album doesn't feel like an album. It kind of feels like a playlist. And I feel like part of the reason part of the reason for that is because you're getting so many different artists throughout the track list, but that is in classic Kaytranada fashion. Songs I really enjoyed off this were the features from Don Toliver. I think the song was called Feel Away. I think it's called Feel Away. Let me check. Yes, Feel Away. Okay. Witchy, Childish Gambino feature. I think that was like the best performing on the album. I really like that song. I really like the beat on the Lou Phelps song. Yeah, Call You Up. I was just like, this is just one of those albums you just dance to, you know? You put it on and you can't help but bounce. Another song that I really love was the Channel Tres feature. I'm sorry I can't remember the names of these songs, but I remember the features. Drip Sweat. This is just the chorus like drip sweat. And it's just like a fun song. I was always playing this in the gym because obviously I'm dripping sweat, but it's just like a vibey song, like makes you want to dance. It is a classic like summer feel, and I think that's what the Kaytranada album Timeless really embodies, is this summer house vibe. And so if you're into that, you'll probably be into this album. So I definitely suggest checking it out. I'm not a big house fan, but this is a good album. I can't lie. So the next one, oh, there was so much music these past 2024, blowing me away. Another album that I spent a lot of time with this summer was Charm by Clairo. Now, if you don't know this about me, I am a big Clairo fan. I've seen her 3 times now, and I already bought my tickets to see her at her New York residency, so I'll be seeing her for a 4th time. So, obviously there's going to be a bit of bias in here. I'm a big fan, but she is, you know, the pioneer of bedroom pop, and so this is kind of the sound you're expecting from Charm. But what really surprised me was she really leaned more into the instrumentation on this album. The way her voice fits in with like a full band, with the full band soundscape behind it, which I feel like is a little different because we, in her past albums, on Sling and Immunity, you kind of lean more into that vocal aesthetic. And obviously that is still there, but she definitely leans more into these instruments. There's more like jazz-inspired songs here. You hear saxophone. Yeah, you're diving more into this like 70s soundscape, and this more like muted, soft rock sound, which I really, really enjoyed on the album. She's also delving more into these vulnerable topics about self-image and identity in songs like Sexy to Someone and Juna. And honestly, I've had this on repeat just for a softer vibe. I feel like my summer's been really bratty, you know, like upbeat stuff, but this is the perfect juxtaposition to that. Still vulnerable, but more soft, laid back sound. And I think the production here is really leans into Clairo's voice. And it's just it's something different, but also something familiar. Clairo's sound constantly evolving. And yeah, this was a great album. Some standout tracks were obviously the singles Nomad and Sexy to Someone, as well as Juna. I think was a standout that wasn't expected, and I really like Terrapin. So yeah, we're still going. The next album that I listened to this month, complete change of pace, was King of the Mischievous South Part 2. Now this is by Zeltron himself, Denzel Curry. And has this man ever missed? I don't think this guy's ever missed. So this isn't a more introspective project like Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. Instead, this is a more mixtape, kind of just rap my ass off type sound. And obviously, you gotta take it at face value. This was banger. These were bangers, straight up, front to back. And I really enjoyed the sound of this album. You kind of have this hard-hitting, Memphis-inspired rap, that I really enjoy, and this thing is riddled with features. And usually this takes, like, when you have so many features on an album, it kind of takes away from its cohesive sound. But I think Denzel does a really good job of pulling out great performances from everyone on this album, especially from the likes of A$AP Rocky. He kills it. He kills it on his track. A$AP Ferg is really good. And then there's a feature, I'm forgetting the name of the artist, but on let me pull it up. The name is Tia Corinne on Hot Ones, where it's like, I can make money from the comfort of my sofa. I got carried away there. Anyways, yeah, the features on this list are great, and honestly, it's just a hard-hitting, fun rap album. This is one that I've been playing in the gym on repeat just because it's so upbeat. It's like so much power, so much confidence exuding from the mic. The production is great. Everything is mixed really well. This is a fun album. Not much more to say than Denzel Curry, don't miss. Yeah, give it a listen. And this makes me so excited. It makes me so excited for the A$AP Rocky album coming out because his feature was amazing on this album. Yeah, standouts on this. Let me look at the track list real quick. Hot One, Black Flag Freestyle. Okay, I've been sleeping on the Mexican OT. He is rolling his R's like crazy on this track, but I love it. He just flows. It kind of has like, he sounds like a Texan DaBaby, but like not bad DaBaby, like DaBaby on Revenge of the Dreamers 3. That DaBaby, you know what I'm talking about. Under the Sun DaBaby. But Mexican OT kills it on that track. I really love that. And then I also really enjoyed Hit the Floor, and of course the A$AP Rocky feature I've been talking about at Hoodlums. But yeah, a lot of music, a lot of movies. Not too many books this month, but yeah, you stuck with me through the end. I'm glad that I was able to finally make this video. Sorry if it seems all over the place. This one was a little more off the cusp. You didn't see me reading from a notebook the whole time. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you have any comments on what of my thoughts, or if you have anything different to say, leave it down in the comment section. I hope you're having your Brat Girl summer because the summer ain't over yet. It's been a great year for music, great year for movies, and always a great time to read books. It's been real, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.